intent. Maybe they steal your data. Maybe they use your browser for crypto mining. There are so many different ways, innovative ways in which hackers today are misusing the existing technology. Malicious URLs is one of them. And if they say 1 out of every 10 URLs are malicious in some way or the other, then in so far you've probably clicked on one as well. The number of web attacks, web-based attacks, that could be on websites, it could be on web interfaces or any application that you have exposed to the World Wide Web. The number of attacks has gone up significantly. 56% is a huge number, and these are stats that they've coagulated from for 2018. So in 2018 alone, we've seen web attacks going up by 56%. Yes, everybody would have probably heard about WannaCry. This was something known as a ransomware. It falls under the category of ransomware. Enterprise ransomware. We knew that, let's take WannaCry for example, it affected so many large organizations, including in India, some large medical institutions in the European region, in UK as well. And essentially what ransomware does is that it, as the name mentioned, it holds your business data ransom and expects you to pay a certain amount in order for them to release it back to you. So we can see that there's a rise of even those kind of attacks, or these kind of malwares, as you'd call it, by 12%. The point I'm trying to make here is that with the growth of technology, the number of cyber attacks are also going up. It's important that we keep up with these. So let's go a little underground here. And let's talk about how easy is it to actually hack an SAP system. So far, we were talking about things in a generic from a generic standpoint, but now let's dive in and go a little bit specific into an SAP system. And here we're talking about unpatched systems. Let's make it clear. But I just want to tell you how easy it is for a hacker to be able to hack your systems. So what I'm showing you now in the next couple of slides are going to be some interesting yet very scary facts about what actually exists in the real world. And I want to take you through how a hacker would look at an SAP system and what would they do if their intent was to hack it. What I'm showing you here are very simple plug and play exploits, and you can see majority of them are for SAP. Let's highlight a few. You can see that there are various vulnerabilities that are there in different SAP products, and what's listed here, this entire list, are exploits. That is how a code or something which you can very simply, any technical user can run it and exploit the vulnerability. So you can see here we have something on business objects, we have something on NetWeaver, we've got something on the SAP router. The point is, every product, one way or the other, they do have vulnerabilities. And right here, if you look on the left hand side, you can see these download buttons. It's as simple as this. This is not some secret website that only I have access to. No, it is a public website which even you can go to, you can have a look at, and you can see how easy it is. Somebody just has to click the download button and launch the exploit, and anybody with some technical knowledge can easily exploit these vulnerabilities. That's the bad news. The good news is these are all known issues. We know about all these vulnerabilities and we have fixes available for all of them. There are security fixes, and if your system is unpatched, there's a good chance that these exploits can work on your system. But we do have fixes for all of them, and that staying updated is the point here. You can see how easy it is to get hacked when you're not running on the latest. So I did mention that you do need some technical knowledge in order to be able to launch these exploits. So you might think that, okay, maybe we can't get hacked by the completely untechnical people, right? Well, today it's become so easy that there are frameworks that exist that automate everything. So to the point that you don't even need to know any technical knowledge to be able to exploit a vulnerability, not just in SAP, but everywhere. I've taken this right here. This is an example of an SAP product itself. So you can see the SAP config servlet has a remote code execution exploit right here. This black screen, which I'm showing you, you don't have to go through all the details. I'll highlight the important parts. But the point is that this is a framework which literally with the click of a button, it will return to you a hacked system. Essentially here in this situation, it's a remote code execution, meaning that a hacker can execute some commands on your system, commands that they probably shouldn't be able to. So essentially, a remote code execution in the security world is a very serious vulnerability, and it is associated very closely with complete system takeover, because if somebody can execute some OS level commands on your system, they can primarily add themselves as administrators, shut down the system, or just silently lurk around and steal your data while you don't even know that they're there. So you can see that this exists. One thing to notice is that this is an exploit from 2012, meaning that this vulnerability was known and was made public in 2012. This means that, yes, for this also, or before that, we'll jump into what exactly a hacker needs. He just needs to know where the system lies. The target address is all that they need to know to essentially run this exploit with pretty good chances of success. But again, with the hit of a button, it's easy to hack it. But yeah, once again, this is a known issue. Being disclosed in 2012, and all of the other vulnerabilities that we had shown you beforehand, all the exploits, they all are known issues. They all have fixes ready for them. But the point is that if you do not consume these, I'm just trying to show you how easy it can be to get hacked. Now, today, this quote is something I really like. It talks about how cyber attacks are no longer a matter of if, but when. Hope is not a strategy. You can't hope that you do not get hacked, because in today's SAP systems and how easily they can find information that they can use to hack your systems. So now what do we do? Right. So we at SAP, we understand the growing cyber attack environment, the entire sphere. We understand how it's growing, and we intend to keep up with it. So I'm going to tell you exactly what we do and how you can, as a customer, can keep your SAP system secure. The SAP Product Security Response Team is one of the teams that me and my colleagues here, we work for this team, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do. On one side, we are in touch. We interface with the security researchers, the hackers. We are closely knit with the community to find out and pick up on all these application related vulnerabilities. So normally what happens is that when there's a vulnerability found, they come to us and they report it to us. We handle the inbox called secure@sap.com, and through this inbox we interact with several researchers and research companies, hackers, individual contributors. So it's a very large portfolio, but we interact with them. We come to know of vulnerabilities from them. That's on one side. On the other side, we analyze these reports that they give us. We make sure that they're legitimate, they have POCs. These are all very sensitive hack data, but the hacker community is made in such a way that out of integrity, they do come to us and they inform us of this. And our job is to analyze them, our job is to fix them, and also release security notes for them. We'll come to security notes in just the next slide. We ensure that there's responsible disclosure. By responsible disclosure, we mean that a vulnerability or an exploit, as I showed you before, is only made available to the public after we as SAP have had a chance to fix the vulnerability and give ample time for our customers to consume these fixes, right? We even go up to the extent of, in some cases, we coordinate with many research companies or researchers that go to security conferences around the world to present on SAP vulnerabilities. We coordinate and make sure that even if they do communicate on any SAP vulnerability, they make sure to mention that it is fixed and this is where you can find the fix. This is the job of our team, and I felt it was important to let you know because it's relevant for the next few slides. Security notes, I mentioned this in the last slide. We'll jump right into it. Security notes are SAP's way of fixing known security vulnerabilities. So other companies might use advisories, some might use blogs. There are various different other deployment methods that other companies choose. For SAP, we go by the terminology of SAP Security Notes. These notes essentially will contain information about what the vulnerability is, where does it exist, and what are the countermeasures or the fixes that we recommend to fix it, to solve this issue. So it can be in the form of correction instructions, maybe some configuration changes, even an SP upgrade, various methods depending upon the product. One thing to keep in mind is that Patch Day Security Notes, which I'll explain a little bit more in the next slide, is released on every second Tuesday of the month. So over the month, maybe we collect 5, 10, 15, depends, security notes, and we make sure that we release it on the second Tuesday of every month. So, and I'll show you exactly where to find them. But the point here is that if you as a customer is looking to keep up to date with us on when do we release our security notes, the second Tuesday of the month is what you have to look for Patch Day Security Notes. Probably we'll share these slides with you after the presentation and you'll get the link. I'll also go to the link to show you what it is. But you can see here that customers, we need to encourage you to regularly review this list and verify each of the security notes. The security notes are our way of delivering information on security vulnerabilities and their fixes to you. And you as customers will be able to do your security assessment using these notes to understand whether this particular note is relevant for your systems or is needed in your environment. So that assessment, we can only give you the information to do your assessment. We can't, but of course on every scale we do recommend implementing every security note, but the assessment again lies on your end. So I will quickly jump into the portal. What does it look like? So the link that I showed you in the last slide, the link in this slide is the same. This is your one-stop shop for all security note needs. I will open this page, but I encourage you all to bookmark this page, because in the future, if you're looking for anything that has to do with security notes, this is the page that you probably have to go to. A few things to look into when it comes to this page. I'll quickly cover it on this slide here before actually going to the browser and showing you. Okay, 3 things you might want to keep in mind. One is that the security notes, which I mentioned, which have the information about the vulnerability, the fix and everything, you can find them on the left-hand side with this Access SAP Security Notes button. For example, if you're using our products and you find a security vulnerability and would like to report it to SAP, or you're looking for the right channel to report a vulnerability on your product to us, you can use this link and you'll find out how you can get in touch with us for that. The third thing that's important to keep a note of is the Spotlight news. So this is where you'll find the latest information that we want to communicate, maybe a statement on some of the latest hacks. I'll show you the page right now and you'll understand better. Quickly open this up. You can see that I have this page ready. Like I mentioned, on the left-hand side, you've got your SAP notes, security notes, which you can access. On the right-hand side, you can report a vulnerability if you've found anything on our products. And like I mentioned, the Spotlight news is over here. You can see that in January this year, we had updated and put out a statement about the queries that came from Meltdown Inspector. So, and whether SAP systems are affected and that kind of information. So you can see that the Spotlight news is also an important place to keep an eye on if you're looking for some information from SAP on security vulnerabilities or anything that has to do with security. We try to put it here in the Spotlight news. Okay, so let me dive into security notes. The moment you click on Access Security Notes, you will be redirected to the Support Launchpad with the already applied filter of security notes. Here you can see, once the page loads, that all of these that you see are all security notes, right? You can see they've got a title, they've got a CVSS score, they've got a category, they'll tell you when they're released as well as on which component, right? I'm going to quickly put on just one filter, which I feel is really important to explain in this scenario. So you can see that there's a button here called Patch Day, and under this there are 2 examples or 2 options: Patch Day Security Notes and Support Package Security Notes. These both, I have explained them in the slides, but I thought it's better we show you live. The Patch Day Security Notes, and this is important to know, that Patch Day Security Notes are security notes for known vulnerabilities, which are for externally known vulnerabilities and internally known very high vulnerabilities. So I'll say that again slowly. So externally known vulnerabilities, the reports that we get from our external communities, hackers, researcher companies, when we push out fixes for those will always be in the form of Patch Day Security Notes. In addition to those notes, from our internal testing efforts or our internal finds, if we find any very high issue, security issue that we feel is of a high critical impact, we make sure that we put that as part of a patch day note as well. So that is what a patch day security note means. And as mentioned in the slides, these patch day security notes are released on the second Tuesday of every month, right? Another thing are these support package security notes, or for short, we call them SP security notes. These contain all of the internally found security vulnerabilities, the fixes for each of them, right? So I'm just going to put on the filter of patch day security notes just to show you how it looks. So you can see that they will have a CVE ID. Most of the times, the title will tell you where exactly the vulnerability lies. You can find out which component it lies in and everything like that. Clicking on any one of these will take you into the note where you will actually find the information about the vulnerability, some of the impacts that this vulnerability can cause, and of course, the CVSS. The most important part is you will find the fix. In this particular situation, it's in the form of a support package. In other cases, it could be a correction instruction. It could be verbally, we might have described some configuration change. In this particular situation, it's a support package. But yes, you can see that this was released on the March patch day, as we call them patch days. So like we mentioned, on the second Tuesday of every month, we've got patch days, and we signify them by the month. So March patch day was the second Tuesday of the March month, right? Okay, so let's Okay, so we already explained this. This was what I was trying to tell you in the portal as well, that the difference between these two filters is basically one consists of the externally found vulnerabilities plus internally found very high, or we have a term for it, hot news, and the SP or support package security notes have internally found vulnerabilities, yes, with dependencies. Okay, so this is typically what the session was about. We did not want to dive too deep in this first session. I'm just going to quickly wrap up the session by talking about what the three key takeaways were, as well as I'll tell you a little bit about what we plan for the future sessions. And then we'll completely leave it open if anybody has any suggestions, or if they have any doubts. For sure, I haven't checked the comment section, so we'll have a look at that. Firstly, exploiting an unpatched system is not difficult. The first few slides I had shown how easy it is to, number one, find an exploit um, for a vulnerability on an SAP system. I had also shown that even if you're not a technically advanced user, you can still exploit these vulnerabilities with the help of some very well-known public frameworks, right? So the point is that if your system is unpatched, it's not very difficult to get hacked. And like we mentioned before, it's not about whether you will get attacked, it's about when you will get attacked, because that's how easy it is for it to happen. The second point is, now what happens since it's so easy to exploit? What do? We always recommend, and we always encourage you to ensure that your systems are always running on the latest patches. In the previous slides, I had mentioned about our patches which come out in the form of security notes. How do we publish them? When do we publish them? What the different kinds of notes that we publish are. So yeah, the important part is make sure that you have a look at these notes on a regular basis. We'll talk about that maybe in future sessions, and also make sure that your systems are running the latest patches. And this is the best way to keep yourself protected from these kind of attacks. Although it's not in the slides, I had come across an interesting statistic from 2018 again, that 60% of the attacks or breaches that have happened over the past few years are because of unpatched systems. So that's a huge number, and you can easily mitigate or keep yourself safe by keeping updated or running the latest patches. And lastly, we have our SAP patch days, which is the second Tuesday of every month for the patch day notes. Do keep up with them, and you can have a look at the support portal. Once I share these slides, you'll have that link, and I encourage you to please bookmark that page, because that will be your gateway to find out every time we publish new security notes on the patch day. I'll quickly talk about what we want to do for the upcoming sessions. This was a very basic introductory session, and we hope to slowly ramp up to more in-depth and advanced sessions about security notes. And while this was a very basic session, in the future sessions, we hope to, number one, talk about how do we endorse a patching process. For example, when you look at a note, it is up to the customer. While we provide all the information, it's up to you to do a security assessment and uh, decide whether you should implement this note and how much effort it's going to take and those kind of things. So one thing that we wanted to cover in the future sessions is what do we recommend from our side when you see, now for example, you open the SAP support portal that I showed you and you see maybe 3000 security notes. What do you do? How do you implement them? How do you tackle such a huge backlog? This is something which we would like to cover maybe in a future session. What do we recommend as a patching process? That's number one. Number two is, and this happens in other regions as well, in the Europe as well as the American region, we wanted to do this also for our Indian customers, wherein every month when we release notes, there may be some notes which are a little bit different. They might have different implementation steps. They might need slightly more attention, and we would like to give it the attention it deserves. So maybe in the future sessions, we also plan to cover particular notes that we release on the patch days. Maybe these notes are of high importance. Maybe these notes have a slightly more complex configuration or fix involved with them, but we hope to cover these as well and just talk about them. And if you have any questions, then also solve them on the fly. This was our plan for the future sessions, but of course, we leave everything up to you. This was what I just presented was an introductory session, and we want your feedback. So we need to know whether you like this, whether you don't like this, the roadmap that I spoke about, whether it works, or you would like us to also add in something different. Yeah, so right now I leave this completely open for question and answers. The floor is open for question answers, but I'm just switching to the next slide so that you can take your time to note down this information if you need it. Please feel free if you would like to connect with us after the session. My email ID is here, and we can always get connected even if not right now. Any feedback, suggestions on this session, the next upcoming sessions, or if you have any problems with regard to security notes, you can drop us an email, or there's a component that we've mentioned there exactly for this purpose. Any issues, feel free to raise a component or drop us an email. So for now, do we have any questions on the chat which are unanswered? Give me a second. Okay, so maybe I'll just read out one of the questions. Um, So do you have any bounty hunter reward for finding the vulnerability? I think that was answered that we do for particular product areas. The second question was, is there a way to find product or portfolio wise vulnerabilities at one place? So yes, there is a way. Maybe I can quickly show you on the portal itself. One second. So yes, there is a way that you can find out per component wise. So the support portal itself is quite advanced and has a lot of filtering capabilities. Second.
Rohit, we can't hear you. Are you there on the
Give me,
call?
yeah, sure, give me one.
Yeah, no problem. Take your own time.
Okay, give me a second. So I think I was having some technical issues. So there is an advanced search that exists on the portal. I think my colleague has also pinged me the link for that. Okay, it seems the link is already in the chat, so I'll just quickly go to that and show you how that works. You can see that there's a link which is the same support portal, but this is the search part of it. And give it a second. Once this loads, you'll find a numerous number of fields which will allow you to search for these. Yeah. So what we had opened here, that is the security notes, was just a subset of the entire support portal. What I'm showing you here is actually with where all the filters lie. So you can see that on this particular page of document type, if you select security notes, this is meant to show you all the security notes that exist on the support portal. Over here, you can see that there's a components search. So you have a fuzzy search over here, which says that it starts with some particular component. You've also got an exact search if you know exactly what components it is that you're looking for. You can even do a reverse search, that is excluded components also exist here. So yeah, this using these, you can play around with these filters. Probably this could also be something that we can cover in the future sessions. We can go deep into these filtering functions and how they work. Okay, let me just come back to the questions. Okay, I think the other questions are being addressed on the chat already. Is there anybody who'd like to, ask anything on the call itself? Please feel free to unmute and ask the question. And even if we've missed out any of the questions, I think everything has gotten an answer. But if we've missed out anything, please uh, just post it again or unmute yourself on the call and let us know, and we can address it right here. So I'll just start off with a few of the questions. So does the SP, does the SP or the EHP include security notes? So yes, your EHP will act as a bundle that will include all of the previous security fixes also. So yeah, the next question, I think there was one which just got posted. One second. Okay, so I think one of the okay, I think everybody is able to hear me now. I think we've covered some of the questions on the chat as well. Give me a second. There are a few more questions. If you can't hear me, it's probably because I'm reading the question. Give me a second. So there was a question here about um, whether the patch notes will contain or whether an SP level upgrade will contain the patch day fixes as well. So yes, the consequent SPs that get released will also contain the patch day fixes as well. But the point is that at the time of the note being released, for example, if the fix is in the form of a correction instruction, that is something which we'd expect you to look at on the day of patch day and then assess if it's something that is worth implementing in your systems at that moment. So that's to also cover the assessment question that was asked before. Does the a little bit up, yeah. Does the early watch alert output from Solman under security section provide information regarding security note? Yes, yes, it does, yeah. Okay, so the next question, I think just one came just now. How long does it take for SAP to release a note for an ongoing recently identified vulnerability? Okay, so there are a lot of factors that play into this, but one big thing, of course, is the impact of this vulnerability or the severity of the vulnerability that primarily governs how long we take to fix it. So while it does depend upon the impact, while there are probably some recently identified ongoing vulnerabilities, right? So you can see that in some cases, for example, Meltdown Inspector, when if you had a look at the Spotlight News, if they are largely and very well-known vulnerabilities, we make sure that at the time of us making a fix or at the time of our own investigations, we make sure that we have a advisory or a statement ready for our customers who might have similar questions. So that is one thing that we do. We make sure that our communication is prepped for these kind of severe issues. On the other hand, we also make sure that our fixes come out in terms of the impact. So yes, while we don't exactly disclose the exact timelines, know that we have, compared to the industry, we do have relatively short timelines, which we base upon the severity of the vulnerability.
Uh, Rohit, the individual questions can pour in, and Silveraj and
Yeah, sure.
yourself can reply in the chat itself.
Chat.
Uh, we would request everybody, if anybody have any questions which they would like to speak out, please still have some time to take those questions. Otherwise, I would request Rohit uh, to let us know a little bit of plan how we want to take the follow-on sessions with Indus. Uh, and the recordings and the presentation would be shared with the Indus Forum. So everybody attending the meeting and anybody who would like to go through the content can refer to it at a later point in time.
Okay, yep. Thanks, Sanmitra. So, like Sanmitra mentioned, if you have any questions you'd like to voice on the call, please feel free. In the meanwhile, I can reiterate again how we plan to go ahead with the future sessions. So, our initial plan was to make this into a monthly webinar session. That is, every month we come onto the Indus community and talk about SAP and the security notes and security of SAP systems. What I presented here was an introductory session, but for the future roadmap, one thing that we want to plan is the what we recommend as a patching process. That is analysis of security notes for their relevance in your particular environment and how to deal with a huge number of security notes or a huge security note backlog. And what do we recommend from our side in on those lines? Uh, on the, Post that, maybe we cover that a few times for other customers if they miss out as well, and we can put those slides online as well. Post that, we also plan to cover patch day notes, like go deep into security notes and any peculiar security notes or any different security notes that might have a higher impact or higher importance, or like somebody mentioned in the chat, some very well-known vulnerability, so if there's a note that we've released for that and we'd like to bring a little bit more attention to that, we can do that in the form of this webinar, and we can talk about what kind of fix we recommend for it, as well as if there are, in some cases, if you've implemented security notes, you might have seen that some might have some manual effort involved in those or some configuration changes. These are things that have to be taken into consideration when you're assessing whether this note should be implemented immediately, or when you're scheduling of when you can implement your security notes. So our future plan is also to cover these kind of security notes and explicitly tell you, maybe save you some time from looking into the note, and explicitly tell you that these particular notes have a little bit complexity involved with them, and what you need to do or what you need to keep in mind when you're implementing these particular security notes. So these are the two things that we had thought about so far: the patching process, as well as the covering some particular notes which maybe need some special attention. But again, this is completely this is what we think would be a good idea. But if you feel like we need to focus on something else, maybe go deeper into the support portal and how to search for particular notes, or any other particular tool that you might have a doubt with, you can let us know. Drop us an email. My email ID is up on the screen there. So yes, this was our plan for future sessions, which is completely based on your feedback.
For the timelines for the next session, please stay tuned at the Indus Forum, the place where you're registered and where Indus calendars are shared. The next upcoming sessions would be shared in the same place much in advance, so that everybody can join the session and make the best use of it.
Thanks, Anmitra. I think one of the questions on the chat also spoke about when the next one is scheduled. So yeah. Okay, so I think with that, the questions also on the chat are getting answered. You can keep them coming in, and if you'd like to voice anything, you can. Else, I think I'm done with the presentation. Feel free to get in touch with us. The email ID is there. Customer instance, you have a component. And yeah, thank you so much, Sanmitra. Over to you.
Thanks, Rohit. And thanks everybody for joining. As I mentioned, the recording of the session and the presentation will be shared with everyone. Yeah, thanks and have a good day. Thank you.